is Martha. May I help you?
Hi, is this where I called to ask about getting birth control from the health department?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
I just wanted to ask a couple of questions.
sure.
So, what is required of me to do to get on birth control with you guys?
Well, nothing. Well, you just have to come in. We're a Title 10 clinic, so we're not primary care. But we do family planning, birth control. We provide birth control if that's what you want and need, um, and we do it based on sliding scale.
I was wondering, is
Okay.
there any kind of exam or anything?
Yes. Okay. So, like I said, we're a sliding scale, so the fees that you're charged are based on your income and your family size. And we don't take private insurance, but so you would be on a sliding scale, and then we could give you the receipt, and you could submit it to your insurance company. If you end up being a percent pay, then you could submit the bill to your insurance company, and then they would reimburse you.
Okay, and
Okay.
what
What
exam would
works?
be needed?
Okay. And so, how old are you?
26.
26. Okay. So, we do a general, well woman exam, okay, and a pap smear. When was the last time that you had a pap smear?
Um, do I have to get that to be on birth control?
Um, you you may not. We just per protocol. Cause, so I'm the nurse. I'm one of the nurses. Okay, I'm
Okay.
the nurse manager. And
Right off the bat, it's pretty concerning to me that the nurse manager doesn't really know the answers to these questions and seems kind of confused by them.
so you, as far as I know, that you need to have, we need to either get a pap smear record. The
No, no, you really don't. You don't need a pap smear to safely and effectively use birth control, and you don't need to see a record of one either.
pap is, after you turn 21, it's every 3 years that you need to get papped.
I don't particularly like the language that's being used here. I don't like them saying that you need to do this. You don't need to. It's a recommendation that you can choose to follow if you want to.
So, you would come in and you would talk to the doctor, and then you and he could decide together, whether he would defer it or not.
Something else I find rather disturbing about this particular clinic is not only are they forcing women and AFAB people seeking birth control from them to have a medically unnecessary pap smear, which is coercion, by the way, they also don't even have a female doctor on staff, which a lot of people, myself included, are not very comfortable with male doctors, especially for invasive shit like this. So not only are they taking away choice in general, they're also forcing people to see a provider they're probably not comfortable with to perform their forced exam. So it's like a requirement that I have to have that?
Well, well, it can be unless the doctor says, no. Like if you say, I don't want a pap smear, um, and then we provide the birth control method, whatever birth control method that you want. We have IUDs, the implants, we have the depot shot or pills or the NuvaRing.
Yeah, and what about like a pelvic exam? Is that part of it too?
Well, yeah.
Is
But
that
just during the when you have your annual exam, because you can come in and we can get you started per protocol. We have protocols because we're a nurse-run clinic, so the doctor's only here once a month. So for the people that need and they're due for their annual exams, then we'll see them before, get them started on a birth control method, and then um, when they come in, then they come in later when the doctor's here. He's here once a month. We bring him in on the day that he's scheduled to come in to do the exams. And for people under 21, for teens, they're not required to have an exam.
well, aren't you just a goddamn saint for not forcing children to spread their legs for a strange man for absolutely no fucking reason? So
But they do need.
it is a requirement.
So, um, hold on just a second, okay?
Okay.
I'll be right with you. Okay, thank you.
At this point, I've made a couple of these videos and I'm starting to notice patterns now. One of these patterns is that when these providers hear words like required in this context, they start to actually think about what they're doing and why that is so screwed up. They start to think like, holy shit, we are forcing people to have this invasive, potentially very triggering and traumatic for a lot of people exam. You can almost hear it in their voice the moment they start to think about it like that. Watch her just not come back. She just like ghost me. No, and I don't particularly want to.
Okay, have you had some type of trauma or something that
Okay, no, that is absolutely not an appropriate way to ask a patient about their trauma history. I've spoken in my previous videos about this, about the importance of not making survivors feel pressured into disclosing their status as a survivor or the details of a trauma that happened to them. I fully expected this question, so I'm not jarred by it or triggered by it, but a lot of people would be. You should never be asking a patient, "What, are you traumatized or something?" That's not appropriate, and that's not how you speak to a patient about their trauma history.
or would you prefer a female to do the exam, or you just don't want the exam at all?
I just don't want an exam.
Okay, because I called the provider just to make sure that I was telling you the correct information, and he said that we wouldn't need to do it at the first visit because, like I said, we're a nurse-run clinic, but eventually you would be required to have a pelvic, a pap smear.
This right here is what truly disgusts me to my very core. This clinic is letting people come in and get put on this prescription to keep themselves safe that many people also need for other health reasons other than preventing pregnancy, with no exam required. They are letting people become reliant on this prescription. And then they're saying if you want to keep this prescription, you just have to shut up and spread your legs. If that's not the definition of coercion, I don't know what is. Imagine a scenario where this is not a doctor-patient relationship we're talking about, and this is instead like a relationship with a partner. If I told you my boyfriend was providing me with a necessity like financial support or food, and he then said, well, if you don't perform this sexual act with me, I'm going to take away this necessity that you rely on me for. That would obviously be coercion and sexual violence. So why is a doctor taking away a prescription that I need if I refuse to spread my legs for him any different?
Which involves a pelvic exam.
And what is the correlation between birth control and this exam?
Well, we're screening for cervical cancer because at the point in time that you become sexually active, if you become sexually active, you could be exposed, and people just don't know, but it's very prevalent. Like, for example, the HPV virus is very prevalent. So if you've ever become sexually active, more than likely, there's a high likelihood that you could have been, you could be exposed to one strain or another, and there's certain strains of HPV that cause, like 90-something% of all cervical cancers.
I
understand. Make sure that.
But it does taking birth control like put me at a higher risk of cervical cancer or something?
No, not the birth control. Having sex puts you at risk.
So the birth control and cervical cancer have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
Birth control does not cause cervical cancer.
Yeah, so why is it a requirement to be screened for cervical cancer if you want to use birth control?
Because if you're sexually active, you could potentially be exposed to the virus that causes cervical cancer. And it's just a standard of care.
The thing is, no, this is not a standard of care. There's absolutely no reason to correlate birth control with pelvic exams or cervical cancer screening. There's absolutely no clinical reasoning or evidence there. And no reputable health organization agrees that this is a standard of care. In fact, most of them recommend against making things like pap smears mandatory to use birth control, as it just provides an unnecessary barrier to accessing safe and effective contraception. This is not a standard of care. This is an egregious abuse of power and violation of informed consent. Well, I actually did some research on this prior to calling, and according to everyone else, that is not a standard of care, and it's actually considered a pretty serious violation of my right to informed consent to give me birth control and then tell me, nope, you're having a pap smear whether you like it or not.
No, he's not saying that.
Yes, he is. That's exactly what he's saying, and that's exactly what you're saying too, ma'am.
Not saying that, like I said, you could come. I just called the doctor and asked him myself. Okay, if you can come in and you can get birth control, but eventually they're going to ask you for a pap smear, to do a pap smear.
And what happens if, to my birth control prescription, if I refuse the pap smear?
You would have to talk to the doctor, and the doctor would have to work that out with you.
But essentially, there's a chance I could be on this birth control that I need to, keep myself safe. And then I could go in for this appointment, and he could say, well, no, if you don't do this exam that has...
I don't want to talk for the doctor. I mean, I don't want to speak, out of turn for the doctor. That would be between you and your doctor.
No, but I'm saying there is a chance that I could show up for this exam, and he could say, no, we're taking your birth control prescription away.
Again, I don't want to speak for the doctor.
I'll take that as a yes.
No, that's not a yes. That's it. I don't want to speak for the doctor, but I can give you the phone number for my supervisor if you would like.
No, that won't be necessary. I just wanted to kind of...
we're here for you,
No, you're really not here for me.
And like I said, I can get you started, but that's what he told me. So it would be between you and him.
Of course you can get me started and get me relying on this prescription, because reliant people are compliant people.
No, it would be between you and the physician. And so, certainly I don't want to violate anybody's rights.
Well, you are.
Well, I'm not, because I'm telling you, I will make you an appointment and be happy to see you.
At this point, I'm pretty convinced this woman doesn't even know what the definition of informed consent is. But then you're also telling me that my birth control could be held hostage for an exam that has really no correlation to the birth control itself.
We work off a protocol as the nurses, so we don't have prescriptive authority. You know what I'm saying? I do not prescribe. I'm a nurse. I'm not a physician. So it would be up to your doctor, not to me.
It's essentially up to, like, the state of New Mexico, though, right?
It's up to the family planning protocol, the family planning program. It's their, it's Title 10. It's the federal program. They are the ones that do all of the rules.
Well, I mean, I understand it's not your fault that these rules are in place, but I just want you to know, as a nurse and as somebody working under these rules, these rules hurt people.
Okay, and like I said, you're welcome to come, and we'll get you started on a birth control method, and then, then you'll have to talk to the doctor directly. And
you'll get me started on a birth control method and then take it away from me the moment I don't comply with archaic and outdated bullshit rules.
See what the doctor tells you.
Okay, that's kind of all I wanted to ask today.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you want to make an appointment?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. All right.
Bye-bye.